Have you ever wondered why almost every person on Earth measures time the same way? Every day, billions of people check the hour without giving it a second thought. 7:30, 1200, 1845. It feels completely natural, but imagine waking up just 200 years ago. You ask someone what time it is, they don't know. Not because they don't own a watch, because the question barely makes sense. In one town, noon arrives when the sun reaches its highest point, travel 20 kilometers east. And noon arrives a few minutes earlier, travel west, and it arrives a few minutes later. Every village lives by its own clock. For thousands of years, that worked perfectly, until one invention quietly broke time itself: the railroad. Most people think trains simply changed transportation. They didn't. They changed reality. Imagine boarding a train in the mid-1800s. Your ticket says you'll arrive at 3 o'clock. But which 3 o'clock? The one in the city you departed from, or the one where you're going? At first, every railway company solved the problem differently. Some used local time, others invented their own railway time. Passengers missed connections, cargo arrived late, entire schedules became impossible to understand. As trains became faster, time became more confusing. The fascinating part is that the Earth had always been creating this problem. Our planet rotates 360 degrees every 24 hours. That means the sun appears to move roughly 1 degree every 4 minutes. Even neighboring cities naturally experience noon at slightly different moments. For centuries, nobody cared. Then machines demanded precision. Factories needed synchronized workers. Telegraphs delivered messages almost instantly. Railroads crossed entire countries in hours instead of weeks. Human civilization had suddenly become faster than local time could handle. Something had to change. In Britain, railway companies quietly adopted a single standard based on Greenwich. Many towns resisted. Some churches refused to reset their clocks. Public buildings displayed 2 clocks side by side. One showed local solar time, the other showed railway time. People literally lived with 2 different versions of time at once. History rarely gives us moments this strange. The United States faced an even bigger challenge. By the 1880s, hundreds of local times existed across North America. Train accidents became increasingly dangerous because scheduling was so complicated. Then, on November 18, 1883, something extraordinary happened. Railroad companies changed nearly every clock in the country on the same day. Millions of people suddenly began living by a completely new system. The day became known as the Day of Two Noons. Some towns celebrated, others protested, but there was no turning back. A year later, nations from around the world gathered in Washington, D.C. for the International Meridian Conference. Their goal sounded simple: decide where the world begins. After long debate, they selected a line running through the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, England. From that single decision came the prime meridian, modern time zones, and eventually the coordinated global time system that billions rely on today. Different countries, different languages, the same invisible framework. Without it, international flights couldn't operate, financial markets couldn't synchronize. The internet would struggle to coordinate events across continents. Even your smartphone depends on a shared understanding of time. Every second it remains connected. Why did humanity accept such an enormous change? One possibility is surprisingly simple. Civilization had grown too connected to function without it. Once communication became nearly instantaneous, time itself had to become standardized. The biggest transformation wasn't inventing better clocks. Humans had already built remarkably accurate clocks centuries earlier. The real revolution was convincing billions of people to agree on what time actually was. Think about that for a moment. Time zones aren't natural. They don't exist in rivers or mountains or forests. They're one of the largest social agreements humanity has ever created. Invisible borders stretching across the planet, accepted by nearly everyone. Even daylight saving time reminds us how flexible our perception of time really is. Twice each year, millions of people willingly move every clock forward or backward by an hour. Nothing changes in the sky. The Earth doesn't spin any faster. Only the agreement changes, and yet our entire daily routine changes with it. So who invented the time you live by? There wasn't a single inventor. It emerged from scientists, railroad engineers, governments, and millions of ordinary people willing to synchronize their lives with strangers they would never meet. The next time you glance at your phone to check the time, remember this: you're looking at one of the greatest invisible inventions in human history. Not because someone built a better clock, but because humanity agreed to experience time together. And if something as fundamental as time can be shaped by collective agreement, imagine how many other parts of modern life feel completely natural, only because history quietly convinced us they were.